Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to our now weekly Tower of God discussion series. And today we're going to be talking about episode 2, but before we get into the video proper, I do want to give a big thank you to those of you who shared last week's video over on Twitter. At Isuokami, at Sirius9752, at Star Anime, at Fika, at DarkfirePlayer4, at Deep Not That Deep, at Matt87Eagle, at Bubbalubber, at Janeme, and at Clockwork Cams. Thank you all so much for sharing last week's video over on Twitter, and if you too would like to have your name shouted out in next week's Tower of God video, then be sure to share this video around on the internet, and then tag me at JoJo Talks Too Much over on Twitter, and I'll be sure to shout out the first handful of you in next week's video. So what do you say we go ahead and get into it? This is an interesting second episode, and I say that because I don't want to toot my own horn here. I don't want to brag, but I was right. My color theory was on point. I did notice a few people saying in the comments, like, I don't want to say too much, but nice with the colors. And I was like, oh, maybe I'm onto something. And immediately by episode 2, it is very clear that at the very least, I was somewhat accurate with my assessment of Khun. Khun? I think his name is Khun. Khun? Sure. Khun is pretty much what I had assumed he was based off his color design. A very sort of tranquil and calm and yet still sort of unsteady and uncertain type of character. And not so much that he's uncertain with himself, but in the sense that you don't really know what his deal is. You don't know where his allegiances lie in the same way that you wouldn't be able to predict the ocean. You wouldn't be able to predict Khun, because he's still like that sort of blue vibe to him. And it's also sort of ironic given what we see in this episode, basically a controllable water, which is kind of interesting. And it again is sort of skyrocketing Khun into being my favorite character in the show so far. I'm likely mispronouncing his name, so apologies in advance. But yeah, my color theory was seemingly pretty accurate, and I do think it's interesting that his design is so much different, or so much more deeper. Like, you can read deeper into his character than you can with, say, Bam or Rak. And that's because I feel like Bam and Rak are wearing their hearts on their sleeves, so you get that sort of stark black and red design to them. And you know exactly what their goal is. Rak wants to fight strong guys, so Rak is Goku, and Bam is very much dead set on finding Rachel, and that shines through in their character designs and the colors chosen for said character designs. Like, they are very much wearing their hearts on their sleeve. Their goals are very well established and out in the open, whereas Khun, his desires, his goal is still sort of shrouded in mystery, at least as of episode 2. And I'm a little bit proud of myself, I'm not gonna lie. But at the same time, I probably am still way off on other aspects as well. I assume Bam is going to have deeper motivations as the show goes on. I assume Rak's motivations are likely deeper than just, I want to fight strong guys. There's likely a reason for it. But still, like, it's just the idea that their goals are sort of either shrouded in mystery or very clear and out in the open. Likewise, speaking of shrouded in mystery, we meet a new character in this week's episode, a ranker named Leroro. I'm just gonna call him Lero for the sake of it, and the instant this character walked out, I'm like, oh, it's my boy, it's Kenjiro Suda. You can tell immediately, and Suda is probably one of my favorite seiyus. Most recently, you may have heard him in It Invaded as Sakaido, and the man is just, his voice is fantastic, and it's very well suited to this sort of mysterious new character who we're introduced to, Leroro, sure. He is what they refer to as a ranker, basically somebody who has actually climbed all the way to the top of the tower and met the king there. So he is obviously incredibly skilled, and Khun straight up addresses him as a monster, and that very few of the regulars are even capable of doing that, let alone like coming back down and being some sort of test advisor. So that's really interesting. And as it connects to Khun, since that's still where my attention is right now, it's interesting that when he says, like, oh, it's Shinsu, Lero responds as though he's, like met him before. Like, he says, like, yeah, it is, and pushes him back. And then later on, we hear him say, don't get too close to Khun, which I find interesting. And then later on, at the very tail end of the episode, when we see the next test advisor, who I assume is likely also a ranker, he also says, oh, it's Agro Agnes Khun. Interesting. And it's like, whoa, okay, so they know him. Why do they know my boy? Why do they know Best Boy? I mean, everybody's likely going to know Best Boy because he is easily going to be Best Boy of the season. But still, that was really surprising. And the other thing I have to address is, oh my god. Okay, so y'all know Yaboya Fidanchi. This is out in the open. I am one with the Fujo community. And the instant this show was tossed my way, I was like, why is everybody so interested in Tower of God? It seems cool, but like, why recommend it to me specifically? That's interesting. Because it seemed cool. It's something I would check out, but like, there was a fervor, like, JoJo, you have to check this out. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Why do I need to check this out? And then I saw Bam and Khun, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, immediately I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. And they are immediately shippable as of episode 2. It only takes 2.33 minutes for them to immediately start shipping these two. Only 55 seconds after the OP, and yes, I counted. Like, of course I did. I was floored by how quickly they're like, no, this is gonna be a ship. Like, immediately, like, no, we need a ship. This is it. This is gonna be like, this is the ship of the show so far. And I'm in. I'm totally in. And I loved the interaction that he has with Bam, who is such a sweet boy. Bam is such a sweet dude, and I don't want anything to happen to Bam. Like, immediately, I'm already about these characters. Like, Khun, I want to know more about. He's fascinating. I love him. I love, like, the sort of cocky but still mysterious vibe. Very nice. Bam is a sweetheart. Don't want anything to happen to Bam. And Rak is my lovable idiot alligator, even though he's clearly a dinosaur. But yeah, he's, like, these three being a team, I loved. I loved how the three of them became a team as well, basically tricking Rak into joining them. It's great stuff, and Khun is, I think, going to be Best Boy of the season, and I don't just mean this show, I mean spring season as a whole. But let's move on from our boy for a little bit and talk about some lore that's dropped on our heads in this week's episode. Specifically, I want to talk about the whole Shinsu wall test. This is interesting to me, because they straight up establish, or Lero establishes, that the Shinsu is a sort of like it's water, and you can tell that, like, by the way it moves. It moves like water, which is, you know, like, cool. Okay, and I thought maybe he was like some sort of like waterbender or something like that. But no, it's a sort of breathable water, and it's the source of the tower's power. The Tower of Power. It's the source of the tower's power, but also the source of the inhabitants' power as well. So the regulars, and I assume also the irregulars, are able to manipulate this Shinsu, and I assume that's what gives them their enhanced strength and abilities and stuff like that. Interesting. It kind of reminds me of, and maybe I just have this game on the brain, but it sort of reminds me of the live stream a little bit, in the sense that it's a sort of like visible power source. Like, you can see it. It moves like water and is the source of strength for not only that world, but also the characters within said world. That's kind of the vibe I get. I could be way off in regards to the Shinsu, but that's sort of the vibe that I got. And the wall test I find to be specifically interesting, as it's sort of, it shows the scale of power between certain characters, right? Some characters are able to easily walk through the Shinsu, right? You see the green girl and like the cool samurai dude with two swords. He's able to, like, the two of them are easily able to walk right through. And in fact, the girl with who's all green, both Bam and Lero pick her as the one who's going to walk through first, and easily as well. Whereas their third member, their partner, really struggles to get through the barrier, and he's like really like it's incredibly difficult to the point where I'm pretty sure him and the girl next to him actually start bleeding from the forehead. But it's not like meant to be grim. It's played up for laughs. And the dude in the tracksuit, man, I feel for him. I feel for this guy, because he was just like, screw the gods, like, and just tries to force his way through. He strikes me as like the goofy character, the one who's sort of going to be like the fun-loving character. I want him to keep making it through because I already love this dude. Honestly, and keep in mind, I haven't finished this show and I'm still on this particular arc. But these last 2 episodes, is anybody else getting like a Hunter x Hunter vibe? Am I the only one? It feels like the exam arc, which I am still currently in. I know, I haven't finished Hunter x Hunter. I'm a bad person. But it reminds me of that. Like, it reminds me of this sort of, like they're going through some sort of exam, but it's like, I assume the entire series is going to be just, like, a long exam process. Interesting stuff. But the other interesting thing about the Shinsu wall is that some people, it's not just difficult to get through, like it is for the tracksuit guy and the girl, who I also low-key ship, which I thought would, like, just the fact that when they don't like each other when they're trying to get through, but then once they do get through, it's like, hell yeah, now we're friends. It's like, nice, okay, I kind of ship it a little bit. But the other thing is that it's not just a struggle, you can actually just straight up not get through this thing. And we see that when my counterpart, my weird gun-wielding counterpart, your boy would never wield a gun, which is why I assume this is evil JoJo. But evil JoJo does, in fact, not pass the test, which means I won't get to see my evil counterpart in the show anymore. Alas, I hope you all enjoyed my Tower of God cameo. Because yeah, that dude straight up looks like our Hobbit avatar on the channel. It still blows my mind that he's, because he looks so, regardless. I was shocked to see that he didn't make it through, because he felt like he was going to be a character who would be like a background player in most of the show, but he's already out, which I find to be interesting. And it's not like Lero is necessarily cruel either. He just gives him a taste of what the Shinsu is like, and what this would feel like on the higher levels of the tower, and this dude just can't take it, and unfortunately does not pass, which means I believe his entire team doesn't pass, even if they got through, which I guess makes it a good thing that the dude in the tracksuit got through. Holy crap. But yeah, I found the whole Shinsu aspect of the episode really, really interesting. I want to learn more about it. And we do learn a little bit about the world as well. And by the world, I mean specifically the tower. Finding out that the tower like sort of works as like, there's like a residential area, then there's a sort of like lower level of the tower and a higher level of the tower. Sometimes people from the residential area join the tower. It seems it's a little complicated, and it seems a little bit vague, but I feel like that's on purpose, and I feel like they're just trying to kind of like sprinkle in like little lore, because it's not necessarily needed. It's just interesting. And what I really find interesting is the idea that Bam and Rachel seemingly came from outside the tower. Are the people within the tower aware that anything outside of the tower even exists? Does anything even exist? Am I wrong in assuming that Bam and Rachel came from outside the tower? I'm sure people will let me know in the comments. But I do find it really interesting. I find the lore to be, like, if they continue to just kind of slowly sprinkle it instead of giving us huge exposition dumps, I'm all about it. I like the vagueness, because it leads us to sort of speculate. And you guys know me, I love speculating, I love trying to find symbolism and stuff, so I'm really all about it. And I really dug this episode. I was assuming there'd be like more like bombastic fight scenes and stuff, but Tower of God is sort of immersing us in this like sort of atmosphere of melancholy, yet like some like striving towards something. It's really unique, Tower of God, and I'm really gonna enjoy seeing where it goes from here. With that said, everybody, I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts on this week's episode. If you can't tell, I really enjoyed it, but I want to know what you guys think now. What do you think about the world building? What do you guys think about the top tier ship that is Bam and Khun? Let me know in the comments below. And that's gonna do it for today's video, everybody. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, then by all means hitting that like button and leaving a comment down below is a great way to help out this channel as it pleases the almighty YouTube algorithm. So if you choose to do so, kudos to you. And if you're feeling extra supportive today, you can go ahead and check out all the links in the description. One goes to my Twitter, another one is to our Discord server, another one to our merch store if you feel like grabbing yourself a mug, and of course, our Patreon page. And speaking of the Patreon page, I do want to give a big thank you to those of you in the T Squadron who support this channel month to month. Let's go ahead and do the Earl Grey shoutouts. Izevi, Andrew W, Branson C, Bria Rose, Calvin A, Crowbar of Irony, Daniel G, Digger the Fox, Dominic G, Emily, Ionos, Urza, Ginkotaku, Godzilla Fan, No For Nothing, Maria T, Marshall B, Mater, Mirth Mouser, Cell, Shadow Creative, Stephen G, Sakochi, The Suavest Orange, Tristan G, and Veridon. Thanks so much for your continued support over on Patreon, everybody, and if you too would like to join the T Squadron, then be sure to check out the first link in the description to check out our Patreon page. That is a huge way to support the channel. And again, be sure to check out the other stuff in the Discord as well. Go join our Discord. It is now public. You can all join. Everybody can hop in the Discord. Follow me on Twitter if you want me to ramble at you even more. And until next time, you stay classy, AnyTube, and wash your dang hands.